There's a reason she lost interest, and it's not what you think. Most men are out here chasing clarity in women when in reality, they should be seeking clarity in themselves. See, what if I told you that the most common mistakes men make with women aren't loud, obvious red flags, but subtle, almost invisible behaviors that seem normal? Yes, normal to the average man, but smart men, they operate differently. Here's the real shocker. Women don't leave men because of who the men are. They leave because of who those men become when they're with them. Read that again. You can be attractive, successful, and even deeply caring and still push her away without realizing it. Not because you're not enough, but because you're doing too much or you're doing the wrong things. And the worst part? Society tells you these are the right things, but let's pause because this video isn't about shaming you, it's about waking you up. So if you've ever felt confused after being ghosted, blindsided by a breakup, or stuck in a loop where women just lose interest without explanation, then you need to understand this. Smart men don't lose their power in relationships. They don't negotiate for respect, and they certainly don't betray themselves just to be chosen. Now here's where it gets interesting. Because in the next few minutes, I'm going to walk you through 4 things that even smart men often do, without realizing that quietly sabotage their value in the eyes of women. And once you see them, you'll never unsee them. But here's the twist. The last one is something society praises men for, but it's the fastest way to lose her respect. We'll get there. Just make sure you don't tap out before that, because if you do, you'll walk right back into the same dynamic you've been trying to escape. Now, let's break this down. 1. Stop over-explaining yourself. The moment you start justifying your every move to a woman, you've already lost ground. Not because explanation is weak, but because over-explanation smells like insecurity. Here's the truth most men never hear. Confidence doesn't explain. It simply acts. A man who knows his value doesn't feel the need to constantly explain why he did something. He just does it and lets his actions speak for themselves. Over-explaining usually comes from a fear of misunderstanding or rejection. You think, if she knows my reasons, she'll approve of me. But the opposite happens. You start sounding like you're asking for permission, like you need her to validate your choices. And slowly, that mystery, that grounded energy you had, it vanishes. Worse, it invites subtle power shifts in the dynamic. She begins to feel like your judge rather than your partner. And once you start acting like you're on trial, guess what? She'll put you there more often. You don't need to be rude. You don't need to be cold. You just need to be clear with yourself first, and then communicate with calm, direct energy, not from guilt, not from fear, from self-respect. Let's say you cancel plans to focus on a personal goal. Maybe you need the evening to prep for a job interview or handle something important. Most men will go into a full monologue trying to explain every detail. Hey, I'm so sorry. I just really need to focus. It's nothing personal. I promise I'll make it up to you. Instead, try this. Hey, I won't be able to make it tonight. I need to lock in on something important. Let's catch up soon. That's it. Director, respectful, no begging for understanding, no apology for doing what's right for your path. Because here's the Stoic truth. A man who respects his own time doesn't feel guilty for protecting it. So the next time you feel that urge to over-explain, pause. Ask yourself, am I saying this because I need to or because I'm afraid not to? That's the real test, and most men fail it without even realizing. Now let's move to the next one, because this next habit, it's the silent killer of attraction. 2. Don't put her on a pedestal. The moment you treat her like a queen before she's earned that position, she'll treat you like a servant. That might sting, but let's be honest. Too many men are handing out royal treatment just because she's attractive. They're bending over backwards, chasing approval, and putting her happiness above their own sense of value. And worst of all, they think that's what makes them good men. Here's the uncomfortable truth. The more you idealize her, the less she idealizes you. Why? Because when a woman feels like you've already decided she's the one without her doing anything to earn that spot, it doesn't feel romantic. It feels off. It feels like desperation dressed as devotion. A smart man doesn't idolize. He observes. He watches how she treats people, how she handles stress, how she shows up when it matters. Only then does he decide how much access she gets to his world. Not because he's arrogant, but because he has standards too. Let's make this even clearer. Imagine a guy meets a woman he's instantly attracted to. Within days, he's complimenting her constantly, planning elaborate dates, canceling his schedule to be available for her, and talking about how special she is, even though he barely knows her. What message does that send? It tells her, you don't need to show up consistently. I've already decided you're valuable just because you exist. That's not confidence. That's blind admiration. Now compare that to a man who shows interest but stays grounded. He listens more than he talks. He doesn't try to prove himself. He isn't rude, but he doesn't flatter excessively either. He's centered. That man doesn't put her on a pedestal. He puts her on level ground where real connection can grow. And guess what? That's the man she respects. That's the man she can't stop thinking about because he's not handing out significance. He's inviting her to earn it. So the next time you catch yourself romanticizing someone too soon, ask yourself, do I really know her? Or am I just in love with the idea of her? We're just getting started because the next mistake, it's what men do when they feel her slipping away and it destroys their power instantly. 3. Never chase after pullback. You felt it before. Things were going great, texts were consistent, conversations flowed, maybe even a few amazing dates. Then suddenly, something shifted. The replies got colder, the energy dipped, she became distant. And your instinct? You went into fix-it mode. You texted more, got more thoughtful, maybe even asked if you did something wrong. You thought, if I just show her how much I care, she'll come back around. But here's the hard truth. The more you chase during a pullback, the faster she keeps running. See, most men panic when they feel that gap growing. They confuse space with rejection. They think it's a test they have to pass, when in reality, it's a moment they're supposed to hold steady. What most men don't realize is that pullbacks are not always personal. Sometimes it's her own emotions, her own patterns, her own confusion. But when you rush in to fix it, you make it all about you. And worse, you start showing up like someone who needs constant reassurance. Smart men don't chase pullbacks. They recognize them, and they let them happen without reacting. Not out of ego, but out of groundedness. They know their value isn't proven through pursuit. It's proven through presence and through restraint. You don't need to chase what's meant for you. You don't need to beg for connection. If she's unsure, let her be unsure. Your stability is the most attractive response you could ever give. Let her feel the silence. Let her wonder why you didn't reach out. That's not a game. It's self-respect. And if you can hold that frame, you'll stop losing women during pullbacks and start seeing who's really meant to stay. But now we move to the most misunderstood point of all, the one that's dressed up as emotional maturity, but secretly drains your power. 4. Avoid being too emotionally available. And let's be real, some of you are oversharing like it's therapy, and it's costing you more than you realize. Somewhere along the way, men were told that being emotionally open at all times is the key to deep connection, that if you just pour your heart out early and often, she'll see how real and different you are. But here's the reality. Dumping your emotional world on a woman too soon doesn't make her feel closer. It makes her feel pressured. Now, don't get it twisted. Emotional intelligence matters. But emotional discipline, that's what separates a grounded man from one who's just emotionally needy with a vocabulary. Most of the time, when men are emotionally available, what they're really doing is searching for relief. They're using vulnerability to get closeness, not to share growth. That's not strength. That's dependence disguised as depth. You need to wake up. You're telling your whole life story, opening every wound, exposing every insecurity to someone who hasn't even earned your full trust yet. That's not openness, that's poor boundaries. A smart man knows how to hold space for his own emotions. He knows when to speak and when silence holds more power. He's not hiding who he is. He's just not handing out his core to anyone with a pretty face and good vibes. Women don't need you to bleed in front of them to feel connected. They need to feel safe in your presence. And you can't offer that if you're emotionally unraveling every time something shifts. It's time to stop confusing vulnerability with emotional leakage. Speak your truth, but don't drown her in it. Because the man who can carry his emotions without placing them on her shoulders, that's the man she respects. And that brings us to something deeper. But we'll get there. Here's something no one wants to say out loud, but I will. A lot of men aren't struggling with women, they're struggling with being men. That's the real problem. Too many men today are walking around disconnected from themselves, constantly reacting to female attention like it's oxygen. And when that attention pulls away, they crumble. Let that sink in. It's not that women are confusing, it's that too many men have built their identity around being chosen instead of around being grounded. But here's what separates smart men from the rest. They stop letting their emotions, their actions, and their worth be dictated by a woman's response. They stop living on approval, and they stop asking to be seen because they finally see themselves. That's the work. That's the shift. And if what you heard in this video stirred something in you, that's a good sign. It means your instincts are still alive. Look, I'm not here to pretend I've got all the answers. I've made some of these mistakes myself. I've chased when I should have stepped back. I've talked too much when silence had more power. I've learned the hard way. But that's exactly why I'm speaking to you now, not as some distant voice behind a camera, but as someone who's been where you are. So here's what I want you to do. Drop a comment below and tell me what resonated with you the most. Whether it's something you've gone through, something you're questioning, or something you're still learning, I want to hear it. I read them, and I'll respond, personally. Because this isn't just content, it's a conversation, one that we, as men, need to start having for real. And no, this isn't the end. It's just where the next phase begins. Because in the next video, we're going to take it even deeper. And once you hear what I have to say next, you might just start seeing everything differently. So don't go anywhere. And definitely don't go back to who you were before this video. You're too smart for that now.